The government doesn't like admitting it's made a mistake, but it couldn't ignore the army of angry people held ransom by Robodebt. Now there's been a major backflip on the scheme that made families feel like criminals.
It's really, really hard. And they've got no idea of what they're doing.
This is the impact Robodebt's had on cancer sufferer Raymond Murphy.
There has been a few times that I've looked, and is it worth living? It's very, very hard.
The grandfather says he's had to sell his home and move into this workshop just to afford medical treatment. And while he's been in hospital, debt collectors have been hounding him over money they claim Centrelink overpaid him years ago.
And for a measly $2,300, I'm getting ripped to shreds.
The controversial Robodebt scheme has been called immoral and illegal. Now, finally, the government has sat up and listened. They've announced a dramatic overhaul to the system. But the big question is, will those affected be paid back? Or will they be compensated for what they've gone through?
The government of Australia should not be some cheap side streets debt collector out of some B-grade Hollywood film.
I just don't know how it came about. I was confused, anxious, depressed.
Single mum Lee Persis says she's spent the last year overwhelmed by a $20,000 Robodebt, wondering how on earth she'd pay it off. You can imagine her relief when Centrelink told her they'd be freezing her debt.
They gave me a bit of breathing space with Christmas coming up, that I'd be able to afford to buy my kids presents.
In what appears to be a major backdown, the government has announced it's freezing some existing Robodebts, and it'll no longer raise a debt where the only information relied upon is income averaging.
It's important for Australians to understand they don't need to contact the department. That small cohort of Australians that have a debt crystallised solely on income averaging, my department will reach out and contact them over the coming weeks.
Robodebt was calculated by averaging a person's tax office information and matching it with Centrelink data. Government Services Minister Stuart Roberts says they'll now also be using other proof points as the basis to identify the possibility of a debt. But they still haven't addressed the most controversial part of the scheme.
There is no change to the construct of the onus of proof.
They have no respect for me at all. I am classed as a criminal and I am guilty and I have to prove my innocence. But in that, they can't supply the paperwork to prove how they come about to say I had a debt.
If someone owes you money, you should be able to give them a clear explanation why.
Catherine believes the latest move is too little, too late. She's one of 4,000 Australians taking part in a class action.
I was very upset and angry about it. I've even thought about moving to New Zealand. For them to think that I owe them money would suggest that they think that I've committed welfare fraud.
Peter Gordon from law firm Gordon Legal.
In the immortal words of Peter Garrett, it belongs to them, we've got to give it back.
Gordon Legal believes the government owes $660 million to people who were wrongly told they had debts, and are claiming more than 220,000 debt notices could be incorrect. The legal action will seek repayment of falsely claimed debts and compensation.
There are thousands of people who have lost accommodation, lost jobs, suffered from mental health issues. And this government hasn't done its homework. I just think they just were lazy, greedy and stupid. They wanted a lot of money from a bunch of people they thought the public wouldn't be sympathetic to.
Opposition Government Services spokesman Bill Shorten calls it cowardly.
Just because you're poor, just because you're vulnerable, just because you're unemployed, just because you're getting a government payment doesn't make you second class and gives the government a leave pass to shortcut basic human rights.
You know, it's all right stopping all this and sending out a very nice letter, oh, please forgive us. But when you have cancer, you're in a different world.
and I think robo-debt needs to be scrapped. It's a joke.
Details on how to join that class action are on our website.